Hi, Ellen. Welcome.
Welcome, everybody, to Venerable Amy's exciting workshop. I'm Donna. I'm Linda's co-SBC here and support for getting these programs offered. So we're going to do something, if you're used to coming regularly when Geshe Gelik is here, when he enters the room and we stand, and then he prostrates, at his request, we prostrate with him, but that's not the tradition, so we want to wait until Venerable Amy is seated before we prostrate. If this is not comfortable for you, unfamiliar to you, it's not required of anybody, so you can just watch. And then also to let you know that we have copies of this book available, How to Enjoy Death, written by Lama Zopa Rinpoche, with help from Venerable Rabina, I believe, or editing. And we have some copies of this by the door when you enter the Gampa, and these are available. You can just help yourself to one. If you find that this would be helpful to you in your practice or from attending this workshop, then these are available at no charge.
Hi, Naga.
Okay, you want to say hi to them? Hi, we have the baby too.
Hi. Welcome.
He listens to a lot of Monday classes. And then he has to have Buddha bhajans. That's his thing.
It's nice to meet you and see you.
Hi, can you see? He can't see you. Hold on. Okay.
Venerable Amy should be arriving shortly.
Okay.
I'll let you
Linda,
know as
Linda.
she does.
Say hi.
No, I went that one.
Okay, we're gonna put the camera off now. And then we're still here. We're gonna listen, okay?
No.
Okay. Okay.
Venerable Amy has just arrived outside. I don't think she's in the building quite yet.
In the Gampa, if you can turn to page 97 and 98 in your gold prayer book, and we'll offer a mandala. Sashi puki chukshin metog tramri rablingji nidegen padi sange jingdu mikte uwa idro kunam dak jingla chupar Jetsun lama tampa kenam kichu kukala kense chutin trig jitar tsampe dulce tin ma lazab ke chuki char pawab tu so idam guru ratna mandala kam niryatayami.
So you can hear me? Yeah, wonderful. So I'm just curious, I just want to say to the people, thank you. Thank you. I want to thank so much to Kadampa Center for hosting me. I haven't been here, I don't think, since 2019, possibly. 2020 I was here. Oh, okay, yep, okay, 2020. So, but it's been 4 years. It's been a while. A lot has happened. right? And 2020, one of my favorite centers. I'm delighted to be back, and I want to thank the center for hosting, and Donna, Linda, and everybody that's made this possible. Thank you. And all the people that have been here before, these people, all the people that have created Kadampa Center, thank you so much. And for all those of you involved, that have been involved, that are involved volunteering, I so appreciate it. Thank you. And thank you to my wonderful hosts, David and Elise. Thank you so much for being there. So I just want to say, for those of you online, I'm looking at you now. Hello. For those of you online, oh, the camera's there. Okay, camera's there. Okay. I'm just curious, can you put your hand up? How many of you are local? I see some of you don't even have your cameras on. Peter, why aren't you here?
Well, I'm local. I'm 50 minutes away, so I'm not
Okay, okay.
not that local.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm joking because the only thing I do want to say is that I know, because I travel to teach at some centers, our centers are trying to get people back in person. Now it's time to kind of come together and build that in-person Dharma community. So at times it is worth the extra effort to try to do that. And people have said to me that they feel different when they're in person. You know, you make the effort and you go, I don't really feel like going tonight. I get it. You know, I don't really want to go. There's so many more delectable things we could be doing than practicing Dharma, right? And so you go, I want to stay home. But then when you make the effort and you get there, and now the days are going to be a little bit longer, more daylight. So it's a little easier, you know, to have the daylight. You can at least drive over. And then they get there and they go, wow, I was really glad I went. You know, I saw so-and-so, and then I reconnected, and we're going to meet for coffee. And so sometimes it is worth a little bit of that effort, I would say, so you can think about that. And to those of you elsewhere, Elizabeth, I know you're in maybe New York, and lovely to have you here with us, and Naga, and all the other people. Lovely to see all of you. I don't know if yeah, anyway, great to see all.
I moved to Asheville. I moved to Asheville.
Asheville?
Yeah, Asheville. And
Yes,
then
that's
we
right.
have a
That's
baby.
right.
She's
Yes, so
listening.
you're a little distant, so no problem at all. So thank you all for joining. So this is a weekend I was asked to teach on the death and rebirth topic, which I have done before here, but again, it's really something we really can never get enough of. And as we know, we just came through this extraordinary period of COVID, which challenged a lot of people and caused a lot of deaths like that. So we're quite familiar with that and what's been happening. And now we're emerging from that period. But I can't say that, so now, because we're emerging from that period, that death isn't going to still happen to you. It is, I'm afraid to tell you. So this is why we want to get ourselves prepared. Want to get ourselves ready. So what we're going to do is we have sessions tonight. Tomorrow there's, I think, morning and afternoon. Is that right? Morning and afternoon. Sunday morning's a different topic, and then Sunday afternoon, like that. So we have a few sessions, and we're going to go through initially the more traditional method of what does the Tibetan system say about death and dying and rebirth, and then we're going to bring ourselves a little bit more modern of, so what do I do now, and how do I get myself together, as well as looking at practical things. Your paperwork, is your paperwork ready? And how do you want to deal with death when it's a loved one dying and you're a caregiver? How are you caregiving? You know, and how are you taking yourself when you're caregiving, taking care of yourself when you're caregiving? And then all of those weird things that go on when people are actively dying. What happens from the very honestly amusing incidents that happen, seriously, to chaos and disorder and fear and, you know, things like that. Like, what do we do? What do we do? How do we get ourselves together? How do we deal with it? Okay, let's just put ourselves in the right space. Think about our motivation. And it's lovely to see some old friends here, and wonderful to see. And you all, and I have to say, you all look the same. It's like no time has passed. I feel like I look in the mirror and an old woman is looking back at me now, but everyone else looks great. So it's great to see all of you. Like that. So let's just try some meditation, and what I want to start to move into is let's just get a taste right now of a meditation on impermanence, change and impermanence. So just find a comfortable space for your body, comfortable position for your body. And just lightly close your eyes. And feel free to adjust your body right now to make sure there's a nice open stretch of space right down the center of you. So if you're in a chair, there's nothing wrong with meditating in a chair. But if you don't lean so heavily against the back of the chair and hold your back up, creates a more alert space for your mind. Less obstruction to the flow of energy. Feel free if you want to place a cushion under your feet, if that helps better position your hips. Allow your mind to settle on the breath right now, a normal, natural breath. And imagine with every inhalation, can you think of something positive you're bringing into your experience right now? Whether it's joy, loving kindness, hope, curiosity. And every exhalation, release something negative, something you no longer need, something not beneficial. And think about your purpose for being here right now, wanting to hear more about death and rebirth. And perhaps you can orient that information that you may receive this weekend that will help you wake up your practice if it needs waking up, that will wake yourself up to make more meaning in your life, to choose meaning every day, that maybe also keeps you away from negative habits, helps you reduce those. And all of this rolled in to benefiting your path and moving you along to an enlightened state. But why? The real reason? Why are we doing this in this tradition? so we can unlimitedly benefit all living beings. So that I have my ginormous toolbox that's focused on helping others as much as I can. And as a Buddha, I'm unlimited in doing that. So if you like that idea, that Mahayana motivation, please include it in your own right now and take a moment and set that motivation for our time together this evening, for our weekend, and for all the activities of the rest of your day. And let's think of all these beings, the beings in Gaza, the beings in Ukraine and on the border in Russia, in Sudan and Yemen and all the places around the world that are struggling right now. Taiwan from the earthquake, all the other beings suffering. And think of bringing them here into our space. We dedicate this time to helping all of them. So I'd like you to focus briefly. We're going to just start with the experiences right now happening in your physical body. So you may feel something in your body. Maybe digestion is happening. Maybe you swallow. Shift in your seat, move your leg, feel your eyes moving. Whatever it is, just note the changes that are going on in your body right now, even as you try to remain stationary in your seat. And you may notice your breath. Every time you inhale, you are inhaling different molecules. Every time you exhale, different molecules, moving around in a certain configuration. With every inhalation, the body expands in a different way, at a different level. Every exhalation, it contracts at a different level. Think of molecularly what's happening in your body right now. Cells replicating, and blood may be streaming through your body and we're not even aware of it. But it's got to be happening if we're able to remain alive and upright. All the organs are doing their functions. And then think of all of these organs, tissue, bones, all of it made up of smaller and smaller pieces and particles. Are any of them not changing? Just try to get a sense of the movement, the constant movement and change of your body, gross and subtle. So now let's look at our mind. Not physical like the body, but look at all the changes going on in your mind right now. Thought pops up, distraction. It leads you to a story. And then you remember going back, what other changes are happening. So you have changes of the gross consciousness, like thoughts, feelings, and then more subtle consciousness, moments of mind. Click, 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 one after another, one causing the next, causing the next, causing the next. Is there anything not changing in your mind? So can you get a sense of this changing nature of your body and mind? Every moment, fluctuation. And let's just step out of the body and mind for a moment to your external reality, like this room. Air molecules are moving around. And even the walls, the floor, which supports all of us, which seems very solid, we know are molecules moving around in a slower configuration than air molecules. Everything is moving. shifting, changing every moment. And if you want to go further out from the room, from the center, trees are growing, flowers are blooming, birds are buzzing around, making sounds, cars going by, trains going by, people talking, walking. Just put your mind on that experience of that changing nature of your external reality. Everything is always changing. Everything is always changing. How often do you resist that in your life? And how does that work for you then when you resist? What's your experience? So let's just bring ourselves back into our seat. And slowly, when you're ready, please open your eyes. Just note any thoughts arising in your mind related to this meditation. So we want to be able to count on something. We want stability, a lot of people. We have people that we count on, right? Sometimes they're there for us, sometimes not. COVID just turned the world upside down, right? Things are always turning upside down like that, right? So what can you really count on, right? Is change. It's always happening, right? So what's your experience with change? How do you work with change? Pretty good? Some of us need work, right? Okay. Things change. This is the thing you can count on is change. That's one thing you can rely on, that things will change. But that's not the way we proceed in life. It's like you got your thing and then here it is, and change always happens. And I just, so many times I explore with people of, I've looked at my own, resistance in the past to change. And now I'm really in this embrace it, like change is good. All that ever happens in my life is dynamic changes, it seems. So I'm kind of like, hey, because this could be better. It could be better. But, somehow we get stuck in the, and I hear people as far as there's development in the Raleigh area, correct? People are always building here. Every time I come, there's new buildings. Well, that's a lot of places. That's a lot of places, there's buildings. And I just, on my way to the airport, called a Lyft, a taxi service to take me to the airport. And the woman was really nice. And we went by this area, and I've just come back to the Philadelphia area 2 weeks ago. I just moved back after a couple of years. So I'm reorienting myself to an area that I've been very familiar with from childhood. And we came by this area, and this old Jack in the Box. You remember the chain restaurant Jack in the Box? And there was a Jack in the Box, and there was some other things near it, this one corner. And we were stopped at a red light, and turned, and it's all gone. And they're going to build something, but it's all dirt now. And I just said to her, I said, oh, the Jack in the Box is gone, And she started to say, oh yeah, she had some comments about it, and I'm like, okay, maybe something good in its place. Like it doesn't, but some of us have like, oh, the old, like we do miss things. So who was it? I think Linda, we drove past something, and she goes, well, that used to be a restaurant with an old cafeteria, and there are some things that we miss. Used to be like that, okay? This is what's happening. People mourn, their bodies are changing. They get old and things like that. But what can you do about it? Right? You can take care of your mind. It's what you can do. Because this is going. There's nothing you can do about it. This is changing. It's finishing. That's normal. Okay? And that's the thing about the change is it's natural. It's a natural process. So every time you resist, you're interfering with nature. And it makes you miserable. Makes you miserable. So I just want to read to also orient ourselves to start our retreat, and is the refuge prayer. And I can never find it in here, the one I want to do. I just forget where it is. Okay. We're going to go to page 111. Can you turn to in your prayer books, page 111, taking refuge in the three jewels. So the thing I wanted to say is, so there's another thing, and I don't know, since COVID in the last few years, I feel like I'm tired of sugarcoating things. I don't think I ever really did, but this is the path, is practice Dharma. There's nothing else out there. There's nothing that's going to do it for you, is get a hold of your mind and get control over your mind. And this is a path that takes effort. It's the most worthwhile thing out there. Now, if you can find another spiritual path, it doesn't need to be Buddhist, something that's going to help you counter delusions in your mind, negativities when they come up in your mind, and to understand and to start to realize that your experiences are coming from your mind. It's not out there. This is it. Buckle your seatbelt, because the world, it's getting harder and harder to practice. I've been all around the world, and I see students everywhere. It is harder and harder now. People are more and more thoroughly distracted. Okay? So this is it. Buckle your seatbelt, take a hold of your mind. You can do it. They say it's a little bit like a sewing needle. You know the sewing needle has a little slit you try to get the thread through? It's a very little slit. But they say for the really serious practitioner, there is a space there you can shoot through, meaning progress on the path. Great progress, actually, in degenerative times, which is now. Okay? But it's a slim space. So you have to really want it and go for it. And you can do it. Everybody in this room, it's possible. So the other thing you can really count on is Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Okay? But I know some of you are newer, so you kind of go, I don't really have an experience of that. What does that mean? Three jewels. Buddha jewel, Dharma jewel, Sangha jewel. Okay? Omniscient mind. Okay? Those that have had, the omniscient mind is one. The second one are the realization of emptiness in your mind. The nature of reality, having that in your mind, that's number two. Number three are the beings that have had that direct perception of emptiness. Arya Sangha. Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. The real refuge is the Dharma, that realization in your mind of emptiness. And everybody in this room can get it. Will it take effort? Absolutely. What else do you want to make effort on? Right? Painting your house? Okay? So that in another 7 to 15 years you can paint it again? That's what it's like. That's what it's like for everybody. I see people, and be skillful. Be skillful. There's nothing wrong with owning a house, right? I'm living in my childhood home right now, right? It's shared by me, my siblings, okay? But I'm the only one living there. So I understand maintaining a house. It's a drag. I don't want to be a householder. I don't want to deal with it. Monastic life, but think about it. And then what they do is you have a perfectly fine kitchen, right? Perfectly fine kitchen. What they're going to do in a few years is they now release a new style of cabinet that's the latest cabinet. And they're going to change those lovely stainless steel refrigerators. And they're going to suddenly make pink ones again, or white ones. or avocado green ones or something. And that's going to be the latest thing. And you're going to go, I need that refrigerator because that's the new one. I want that one, you know. And the stainless steel isn't going to look as good. You're going to say, I need those cabinets. And then you're going to get your whole kitchen redone again. And you're going to be upset with the people doing the work because they don't finish, and they don't finish on time, and it costs more money, and they say we don't have those knobs, and that's the effort we're making, right? And then you're dying, right? And then your mind's out of control. Because I was thinking about the color of the paint in my kitchen and the knobs in my kitchen, and that I needed to have that TV, and I needed to get this new thing for my phone, and it's endless, right? It's endless out there. It's so tiring. Right? I just moved across the country again. I moved 4 times in 2.5 years. Fortunately, it's just whatever fits in the Toyota, that's it. Whatever fits in the Toyota Corolla, that's it. That's all that, I have to move, but it's still a pain moving. It's still a pain moving. Coming back to this house, there were all the house stuff I had to deal with. And it's endless. It'll never, so I kind of was like, okay, granted, because I've been away for a while, so catching up, but just so you want to balance things, get some Dharma practice in. It'll make you happier, make you so much happier. So this prayer, we're just going to read this taking refuge, generating bodhicitta. Just plant these seeds in your mind. Some of you do this every day, right? This is just the basic. What do I take refuge in means when I struggle, when I'm struggling, where do I go for help? And we go to a lot of other beings and a lot of other things. And they give us some temporary relief, not Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Okay? It's an ultimate source you can rely on forever that will be there for you. That will be there for you. So you need to start to plant that in your heart and mind. That's what you want to call up. That's what you want to do. It was honestly, I really felt this in some way. I did a 9-day drive across the country, okay? I've done this drive before, but my dear nun friend accompanied me. Wonderful trip, very dear friend. And we came across, and I really felt Rinpoche's blessing, Lama Zopa Rinpoche. I really felt like it was a wonderful trip. We had perfect weather. I visited some friends on the way, just different things. We weren't really like sightseeing as much of like going to a place and hiking for a couple of days. We didn't have time to do it. But we'd come through some cities and see stuff and like that. And I felt like, so more of that is I brought Rinpoche into the car, because I thought about him. Because I thanked him every day for delivering us safely to the next place. And for, so you want to have your mind more merged with something that's going to lift you up, something that will help you, will be that buoyant cushion for you, that will help sustain you in the difficulties of your practice and the difficulties of your life, right? You want to find that being that supports you like that. And you want to expand that practice for yourself. Find the beings that light you up and get to their teachings, and some of it takes effort. I've traveled across the world to go to see a certain teacher at times, if you can, like that. There's a certain way, it's your priorities of how you want to structure your life. And it's possible for anybody in here. And I know we make excuses. No, I have this, I have to do this. So we settle for something smaller when we can have it all. We can have it all. Meaning your ultimate bliss and happiness and freedom. Freedom. Okay? So let's just read 3 times. We're going to read this prayer, taking refuge and generating bodhicitta. Really think about the words you're saying. The whole path is contained here. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. So traditionally on the Tibetan Buddhist path, I'm going to go through the 9 9-point death meditation. Traditionally do we say on this path about death? But the first thing is spend some time, if you like, on this impermanence meditation we just did. If you have issues with change and you want things to stay the same and certain things you get really tweaked by as far as the changing nature of things, then do that meditation a little more regularly. You can do it more quickly, but really stay in the moment where you're feeling body and mind ever-changing, external reality ever-changing, and just, if you can, when you hit that juicy feeling of that everything is changing, then apply all your concentration there for a moment, as long as you can deepen that experience. Okay? Then the experience will fade, and then you go back a little more quickly, analyze again, burning a hole in it. Everything changes, everything is changing. That's its nature, it's natural. It's a natural process. I'm part of that change. You can start like that. Another thing, the easiest death meditation to do, I really do this every morning, okay, this is my last, I wake up in the morning and I have a moment waking up, I've talked about this before in here. I wake up in the morning and there's that first moment, and we don't think about this as much when we're younger, but when we're older, is you start to come into consciousness, either naturally or with an alarm, and I'm noticing that my body's functioning, right? You have a thing where I think I can move, and as you get older, when you move, it hurts. There are old people where just the movement, but they know they're still able to move, they're able to get out of bed, go to the bathroom, and you can tell that your mind's functioning. Okay? One day it won't be like that. Okay? Now, for most people, it's gradual as it changes. And people start noticing they walk upstairs and their knees hurt. People notice they're having trouble hearing, having trouble seeing. Their hair turns white. The body changes, the skin changes. Okay? So it's normally a gradual process that people encounter over time. Sometimes, unfortunately, people have some sort of tragic health event, and something changes more radically, more dramatically. Okay? And that gets very scary for people, because they were kind of used to the slower changes, but sometimes something happens in a different way. Okay? So after I have my moment of I think everything's functioning great, I woke up another day in the Amy life. This is my life, what I say. Well, that's a pretty good life. I always think of whoever did all the work in my consciousness back there did a really good job. They got me into this incredibly blessed life. So I wake up and I have a little mini 2-minute celebration. Yay! Seriously, this is fantastic. I love it, right? But you have to train yourself, right? How do you wake up, some of you? I'm just curious. How do you wake up? What are the waking thoughts? Anybody? Do you ever catch your waking thoughts? Yes. Okay, nice. Okay, and do you feel it? Do you feel it in your bones? Yeah. Feel it in your bones? Everybody wake up that way? No, you don't wake up that way. How do you wake up? Yeah, there you go. There's some people that wake up, oh my gosh. I know people that wake up with a groan, they've told me. Another day. Oh. I know people that wake up with their lists. I gotta do that, I gotta get, I gotta get out of bed now. Oh. This is your precious human life. You missed something. Just like what he said, it's a precious human life we get. Okay? Because we're not in Gaza, and we're not in Ukraine, and we have food to eat. Right? And we have food, clothing, and shelter. This is a good situation. Please realize it now and do the meditations on precious human rebirth, which is a counter to depression and anxiety, that meditation. But really appreciate, this is a good situation. I know it's not perfect. I know we all have our problems. I get it. But this is a pretty good situation. So I have my little 2-minute jubilance, right? And I had to train myself. There were times I'd wake up And I did this move to help this center in California. Rinpoche suggested I go out there before he passed away, and about 6 months before, a year before he passed away. So I went out to help this center. I helped diligently for 2.5 years. I think the hardest couple of years I've had in this life. Really a rough couple of years, right? So there were some days, for me to be like, yay, I was, but I still was really like, hey, because I still had choice. I could leave whenever I wanted, I could do what I wanted, and I also got to devote my day to trying to help a struggling center. That's fantastic. It's a great thing to do. People that volunteer here and help, this is not a struggling center, it's a great center, successful, flourishing, okay, but they've got things they need to work on, so what a great thing to spend your time doing. So thank you to those that are helping, that are doing that, right? So even the fact that I had it and I followed the advice of my teacher and went out there, so I still woke up and was like, hey, this is a pretty good lot. I lived in a beautiful place. The center's beautiful, right? Like that. So then I have my 2 minutes of joy, and then suddenly this is it. This is my last day. I honestly think that it's the easiest death meditation. This is my last day. Now you may be afraid to say that, and you may go, well, this might be my last day. But I really live it like 6 o'clock tonight, I'm gone, okay? I survived today, right? But I really try to have this feeling, this is my last day. So it's not about what I'm going to do on my last day, it's how do I want to be on my last day? How do I want to be? Okay? And I'd like to be peaceful, and I'd like to be joyful, right? And I'd really like to help people. I'd like to be spacious and in a good mood and all those things. And I want to be that way every day, okay? Now, I'm not like that every day. Things happen, right? But I really keep trying to orient and go, okay, so what's showing up right now? What do I need to deal with? Okay, roll it into my practice. This is all good. It's all coming from my mind, my experience. That's the easiest death meditation. And so I know people get nervous and they go, oh, you're going to create your death. You say that you're going to create your death, right? Okay? I've been doing this for years and I'm still here. Okay? Really, so you don't, it's just, this is a mindset. Okay? And I set my motivation from there. Because what I'd like on my last day is I want to grab the most meaning as I can. And that means moving myself along a path to get enlightened, to benefit all living beings. It's the purpose of my life, every day. And I try to recall that motivation throughout the day, like that. So many opportunities, right? So that's the easiest death meditation. And then we move into another level, 9-point death meditation. This is traditionally the way we're taught in this tradition to think about the death meditation. How do you get your mind ready? And it's very effective. And so if anybody's interested, I know it's far away, but in November in India, I'm leading a 9-day retreat on death and rebirth. So you're going to go to a deeper level at our center in Northwest India, Dharamsala, at our Tushita Meditation Center. So they've asked me to lead. I did this before there. It's an intermediate level class. It's a retreat, and you live there in 9 days. We're moving through the death, like longer meditations and really immersing ourselves in it. It's very, very effective for the mind, like that. So you can plan and maybe make a little trip and maybe go to some teachings with the Dalai Lama if he's teaching up there maybe in October something, and visit an interesting part of the world like that. So it's really helpful to do some sort of death retreat at different points in your life because it deepens the experience. And so this is the way they traditionally tell us to think about the death meditation. So there's 3 main headings that are called 3 roots. 3 roots. Under the 3 roots, there's 3 reasonings that help you realize that root. So they grind it in a little bit more deeply into your mind, into your heart, okay? And then each of those roots has a resolution. So those 3 reasonings lead you to a resolution, okay, that helps you juice up your practice, okay? Helps you really get yourself into your practice on a cushion, figuring out how you're going to do it, right? So the 3 roots are death is certain, is number 1. Death is certain. The second one is the time of death is uncertain. And the third root is the only thing that benefits you at the death time is your Dharma practice, So let's look at number 1, death is certain. And what you're doing in an actual retreat and what you're doing when you're meditating on these, even in your own life, it's good to do a little bit of death meditation every day to think about it. Think about it. And here's where it's effective, and especially if you're doing it every day. You're having a little bit of an issue with somebody at work or someone in your life. Like that. So a lot of times I think, if I was actively dying now, would I care about this thing? Would I be fighting with this person about this thing? Would I be having this disagreement? Would this matter? So it helps to decrease that drama of life and those antagonistic things that come up a lot. When you think about it, actively dying people, they don't care about that kind of stuff. Like when you're talking, when you're caregiving somebody, some of you have done that, and actively dying people, when you bring up those little trivial things, they're just like, I'm dying. I'm not thinking about, those things don't matter anymore. So how much do you want them to matter in your everyday life right now? Now, there's some things we have to take care of, I get it. There's some things we have to take care of. But so you manage it, but how do you want to manage it? With spacious mind, peaceful, thinking of the other person, they're doing the best they can, on and on, as opposed to like, what am I going to get out of this? So we want to keep that motivation really expanded, because we're here to serve all living beings on this path. So death is certain. So when you're doing death meditation, even in your own life, you want to kind of in the back of your head have, I'm definitely going to die. I'm definitely going to die. On this death retreat that we do, we have a lot of meditations like that. So in the middle, as we traverse in the retreat, 4 or 5 days into it, when you're in the middle of it, people get a bit depressed. I mean, that's actually a good byproduct, that you see that people get a little bit depressed, because you do want it, brings the mind a little bit down, right? And it also cuts pride, death meditation. Cuts that spaced out, flying around experience in your mind. And so there's some meditations we'll go over and over. I am definitely, in the back of my mind, definitely going to die. Definitely going to die. Like that. So death is certain. The 3 reasonings under this, 3 reasonings are, number 1, everybody dies. Everybody dies. I hate to break it to you, right? Everybody dies. I think most of us intellectually get this. We understand it. But do we have it here? We have it here. We don't really have it here. Because then you'd be living differently. Okay? So Lamrim, analytical Lamrim meditation, meaning I'm focusing on everybody dies. In meditation, 15 or 20 minutes a day. Everybody, and you're going to go, what you do is you take one of those 9 topics that I'm going to go through, 15 or 20 minutes, take one a day, 9 days. When you finish 9 days, go back, start over. Everybody dies. Okay? So how do I want to think about it? Well, I might read the death parts in the Lamrim books. So I get some scriptural support. I want to think about my own life, right? So you want to think about all the people that you've heard of who have died, all the people you know who have died, right? And think about on the world scale, the richest people in the world, they couldn't buy their way out of death, right? They died. They're still dying. People can walk on the moon, they died. They didn't sort death. They could walk on the moon, that's kind of extraordinary. They didn't sort any way out of death. The smartest people, Einstein, Stephen Hawking, all these other really brainy people, geniuses, they died. They didn't sort a way out of it. Right? People who invented the atom bomb, they died. They could do something like that, but that destroys the world, but they couldn't figure out a way of not dying. So powerful people, the most creative people on the planet, all these people that didn't sort that there's a way to stop themselves from dying. So you want to slowly go consider this, very slowly, in analytical meditation, you're coming from every angle. Scriptural references, something else you read in a book, something you heard in a class, something you heard a student say, a life experience, every angle to move the intellectual understanding to an experiential realization, where everybody dies. That means I'm going to die. And in the back of your mind, because death is certain, you think, I am definitely going to die. I'm definitely going to die. And you really want to stay for a moment and think about, who is it? Who's the oldest person you know? Anybody in here? Who's the oldest person you know? 92, okay? Do you know, so there is a movement on the planet, some of you may know people, I had a friend, was in a movement called physical immortalists. Physical immortalists. Their movement was called the Eternal Flame. Has anybody heard of this? Okay. He was Australian, but he lived for a long time in California. The Eternal Flame, and they believed they were going to live forever in this body. So he and I used to debate. And I said each time, and I knew him over a course of years, and I'd visit him from time to time at this place he lived in, and I said, I know, but you're aging. I said, we both have more wrinkles on our face now, like since we last saw each other, so how do you explain that? And then he'd say, oh, well, those are imperfections, in the body. And I said, well, how many more imperfections am I going to get if I'm... And then I said to him, well, who's the oldest person that you know? And he goes, well, I heard there was a woman, 138. And I said, well, but that you met, that you had proof. Did you see a photo of her? No, I heard about her. Okay. Check stuff out. That you're going to live forever in this body. But you have to really think about it. I'm not saying he's stupid or anything, but think about it. Like, there's lots of different belief systems. You yourself have to figure out and be discerning and check up. If there's something else you think is better, go in there and deeply think and check up on the teachers, the philosophy, how are the students practicing, and maybe it's something better than Buddhism. I'd be happy to hear about it, frankly. You don't need to be a Buddhist to be happy. There's many beings practicing the good heart that are not Buddhists. Christians, Sufis, Muslims, Jews, Hindus, they're all doing the same thing. There is this loving kindness that many of these, that span all of these spiritualities and religions. So what you have to do is find the path that's right for you. Okay, so check up. So I used to debate with him, and then at one point I said to him, well, why would the Dalai Lama lie? I said, do you think he lies? He didn't know what to say about that. So he heard about somebody 138. He never met anybody 130. If people live forever, I want to meet them then. I'll travel to meet them. If that's what happens, I want to see with my own, I want to understand it with my own experience. So check up. So I thought about these different things. There's many different things. Okay, so everybody dies, death is certain. Number 2, okay, every moment we're closer to death. Every moment, life is ticking. Right? You can look at your second, it's a nice meditation. Sometimes look at the second hand on your clock, on your watch, if you have that. Look at the second hand, another second, another second, another second, another second. And I hate to break it to you, some of you already know this, the older you get, the faster it seems like it goes, right? Because when you're a kid and you're 8 years old, a year is an eighth of your life. That's a lot. When you're 35, it's a 35th of your life. That's not a lot. So it's really slow when you're 8. Every week goes by slowly. When you're 60, it's different. Okay? My grandmother, who passed at 99, when she was 90, she told me a day was like on and off the light switch. Okay, I had a thought on that one when she said that. I was like, that's fast. That's it. So it's speeding by right now. It's a speeding train for some people. Okay, so you want to experiment a little bit. This is a way you can practice everyday life. You're leaving this session tonight and you're walking back to your car. Mindfulness. This is your exercise tonight. I'm another step closer to death. I'm another step closer to death. I'm another step closer to death. Okay? I'm another Friday night closer to death. I'm another weekend closer. I want you to think about this tonight, tomorrow morning when you wake up. Okay, you're going to drive home. I'm another driving home closer to death. I'm another brushing my teeth tonight closer to death. In the morning, another breakfast closer. Another cup of coffee closer to death. Another sip of tea closer to death. All these things. Think about tonight, getting into bed. And I get into bed and I also have these dedications I'll do finally when I go into bed, that I want to sleep for the benefit of all living beings. I want to sleep because I need to recharge my batteries. I hope I sleep well for my energy, right? For me to teach the course or whatever you're doing, okay? And I hope I have a good sleep. And I hope and I even have a thought, I hope I wake up in the morning, refreshed, but I hope I wake up, because the breathing everything gets more subtle when you're sleeping. That little inhalation, exhalation, it's pretty subtle when you're sleeping. So all that connects me between this life and next is an inhalation. That keeps me still in this life is one more inhalation. And one day it'll stop. There'll be an exhalation and that'll be it. Nothing more coming in. And then you're going to be in another experience. Okay? So think about that passage, the ticking, as if you got dropped out of a plane without a parachute. Okay? And life is the falling. Life is everything going by, all that experience. Whoa, you're definitely going to hit the ground, and that's your death. It's definitely coming. Okay? So you can think like that. Every moment, I'm another spring closer to death. Another tomorrow, another Saturday closer. Okay? You can try like that. So that's number 2, the second reasoning is every moment closer to time is passing. Okay? Third reasoning, under death is certain. There's very little time to practice Dharma. Very little time we're really formally practicing Dharma. Okay? So some formal Dharma practices, you come to a class, you do a meditation, you're reading a book on Dharma, But a lot of Dharma practice, really effective Dharma practice, is turning your mind from delusion. Turning your mind from delusion is real Dharma practice. Okay? Anything that is going against negativity in your mind is real Dharma practice, like that. Okay? So you can think, how often am I doing that all day long? Think about all your activities all day. Okay? 8 hours a day, average, people sleep. Okay? So that's gone. That's a third. Okay? Then you've got a chunk of the working, the daily activities. The getting up, the washing, the dressing, the looking at myself in the mirror, going to work, working, back to work, eating, buying food, preparing food, cleaning up food, all those other things in between, all that stuff. Think about how much time that takes up. Think about all the time your education took, all the time you spend in relationships. How much time does that take? Right? Raising children, how much time does that take? Taking care of grandchildren. Now, some of it is wonderful life things. It's not to not experience these life things. How are you doing with your mind, though, in those life things? Are you countering delusion? Countering delusion? So your kid comes back from school one day and they're upset because the teacher, What's your response? How do you deal with it? The teacher's bad? Do you reinforce that and tell your kid the teacher's bad? You're good, teacher's horrible. Or I'm going to go into school, I'm going to yell at the teacher. Right? That's not Dharma practice. That's other practice, okay? So we're kind of going the opposite path of the way the rest of the world is kind of running. That everything is outside, everything is coming from the outside that's causing my positivity or causing my negativity. So you have to really explore that. Lama Zopa Rinpoche's main teaching the last few years of his life, everything comes from the mind. Everything comes from the mind. Your external experience, your entire life is coming from your own mind. You created it. You created it with past experiences of your body, speech, and mind. All the imprints you made with your body, speech, and mind made an imprint in your consciousness. And it's showing up in a glorious form, or it's showing up in pain and suffering, confusion, or a mix of all of that, which is most of our lives, like that. So when you can just look at a situation and go, wow, this is really unfortunate. What's my mind telling me here? Well, I created this. Okay, well, maybe if it's really unfortunate, Buddhism says I'm purifying something. Purifying something. We need to purify. We need to clean. We need to clean our minds. So that negativity, that suffering, is a form of purifying negative karma, like that. So I don't want to get overly engaged with it. I don't want to blame others, because that's not going to solve it. But you have to check yourself. Try and blame somebody. They're the cause of my suffering. You know, we're going through, we had a political discussion on the way over here, my driver, and, you know, it's going to be it could be interesting the second half of this year, okay, based on a presidential election, right? I think it's I don't know, I created the cause to be leaving the country May 9th for the rest of the year, okay? Because a few years ago, I had this little kind of quiet vow to myself that if this election goes on again the way this was going, the next time this happens, I will be out of the country for it. And somehow that's what's manifesting, kind of indirectly, okay? But it can get some people stirred up in certain areas. Some people get very stirred up, and then what they do is they look at this duality based on certain characters of people, and they go, well, he's good and she's bad and he's this, and you know, and where does that get you? Just dissension and division and fragmentation, and sometimes fighting with other people. So that those negative words go out there. You know, we have a certain karma that we created this. So you want to look at what are the conditions I am creating in my life? What are the causes I'm creating? Because we can create a pure realm. We can do it in certain areas. And I just look at what are the causes. Like you're creating some wonderful causes, I think, with this center. Because it's quite a strong center, and it's been here for many years and has a lot of supporters and a couple wonderful geshes, and it's wonderful like that. And I saw what happened with our London center, the center in London, England. Okay, I come through and I teach there often every year, and they went through some really difficult years. And I came through one of those years. There was a different director, and the guy, it was really challenging, and the center was like, it just seemed like it was partially closed, and people were fighting and not happy, and it just was kind of this challenging period. Okay, something changed, something shifted. They got a new director, then they got this wonderful geshe, and they're just sailing, just amazing. So you want to think about in your own life, what am I creating the causes for? What am I setting up? Am I creating the causes for? Very helpful. So those 3 points, and they actually say in a lifespan, how are you formally practicing Dharma? In a lifespan, in an average, let's say 75-year lifespan, let's just take that for an instance, okay? That people basically end up practicing more formally about 5 years. That's it. When you think of all the other activities. So we'll think about what kind of imprint will 5 years have on your mind and your activities this time round? When you have 70 years of all these other kinds of imprints, right? All these other kinds of habits. So what you can do is start adjusting now. Let's be realistic, adjusting now. Like for most people, you're not going to just stop and go, okay, I need to be a monk or a nun. And you don't need to be a monk or a nun to practice well. Not at all. You don't need to be a monastic. There's great lay practitioners. So you want to make realistic small adjustments in your life. Can I finally get that practice going and pull out that Lam Rim book that I've been meaning to read for 5 years and get it out and start reading it and read a few pages a day? Yeah. Can I get my sitting place established so that I know, and then I start the meditation? Get the meditation book, figure out how to do it. There's many guides, there's many instructions, FPMT. You know, get yourself to the meditation class. Everything's online anyway. You can find anything online and just get into something, stick with it, and build some consistency. 10 minutes you start, 15 minutes, you start expanding it. You see there's a value in it, okay? And then what can I reduce from all the other distractions that are not beneficial? What can I realistically reduce? You know, can I just borrow a half an hour of that wasted activity that I do every day and move it over here to this practice that's going to orient me better, set me up better for a happier life? Make sense? Okay? Possible? So I know one of the things we did the last time I was here, I think, is we started this buddy system. Those of you that remember it. And there were a couple of people contacted me. They were still doing it, which warmed my heart, melted my heart. But people found it very effective. I got some feedback from people. So it was about finding a person in the room that you do not know, because it's hard to practice on your own. People go home and they go, what was she saying? It made so much sense when I was in there, and now I don't remember any of it, okay? That's very typical. So it was about finding someone else in the room. You met a new person, and you decided amongst yourselves how you would contact the person. If you decided you wanted to text, you exchanged phone numbers. You said, no, I've got WhatsApp, let's talk on WhatsApp, or I'm gonna send you an email now and then, or why don't we meet in a coffee shop once a month? You decide how much you wanted to do, the frequency, where, how you wanted to do it, and you decide whatever you wanted to do. Some people were like, we decided we wanted to read this book together. You know, we decided we're going to do the next course, that this is happening, and we decide, now there's online courses. So we signed up together, or we just did it where each morning we remind ourselves about our practice. We send each other a little motivational quote. It's up to you. But having the buddy got people practicing. They said they kind of felt like they had to kind of do it for their buddy. You know, because sometimes the buddy's like, I don't feel like practicing, and then you'd kind of be like, oh, come on, we need to do this. So then they felt inspired, right? Really warmed my heart that people were doing that. So you can continue, we can start that again, like that. Okay, so first reasoning, death is certain is the first root, and then everybody dies. We're another moment closer to death, and there's very little time for serious Dharma practice, leads us to a resolution. I am going to practice. I will get this going. I'm going to do something. Second root, the time of death is uncertain. So this is a harder root to realize than the first, because most of us understand we are going to die, but the time of death is uncertain. People even use language. People say, when I'm old. Do you know if you're going to live to be old? Could be tomorrow, could be over for you, right? Okay, so now I'll say things, if I live to be old, then maybe I'll do this, that. So there's three reasonings under this root. The time of death is uncertain. Number one is we live in a world system with an unfixed lifespan. Buddhism talks about other world systems. One of them, you get 1,000 years. Get exactly 1,000 years, and you know that when you're born, 1,000 years. That's not planet Earth. People die at 14 years old. They die before they're born. They die when they're 65, 92, all different times. So you can reflect in meditation, slowly reflecting. We'll do some meditations tomorrow, like that, of all the different ages people that you know have died. All the different ages. And you want to keep the mind focused in there for a while. There is no set age. I have no idea when I'm going to die. I have no idea when I'm going to die. That's number one. Second reasonings. There are a great many things that are actually contributing to your death more than keeping you alive. According to the Buddha's teachings, 84,000 different almost causes, organisms, illnesses, things like that. 84,000 things contributing to your death. And we're familiar with some of them. You know, they talk about COVID. Before COVID, there was, remember SARS? That was another one, okay? And then this thing started in Brazil with people's babies called Zika. Remember that? Yeah. And there's SARS, and then there was something before SARS, and there's always going to be some new variant of illness. You know, we're not done. COVID's one thing. It'll molt into something else later. And then you have all these other diseases and autoimmune diseases and these, I don't want to get too graphic, but I was thinking of Marburg disease and Ebola and like some really serious hemorrhagic diseases, you know, people just bleeding from the inside out and, you know, all kinds of things contributing. Natural disasters. Weather systems coming through, flooding, fires, tornadoes, earthquakes, like that. There was an earthquake, for God's sake, in New Jersey today. New Jersey, near where I live. I couldn't believe it. People said the community next to me, something fell off somebody's shelf. I'm like, right, it's all we need now in the Philadelphia area is earthquakes. You know, the buildings aren't prepared at all for that. Like that. I was amazed in Taiwan how very serious earthquake, and initially it was like 9 people died because they're prepared. The buildings move, like San Francisco. I've been in these buildings when they move, and they're built on rollers and designed like that. It's amazing. It's not really like that in Philadelphia, New Jersey, and in New York. But again, all these things are contributing. So you want to keep the mind focused and think about, and it's a little bit grim. Different diseases, people that you know, accidents that have happened, heart attacks, and think about how many people you've heard about. They woke up in the morning just like you. They weren't planning on their death that day. They weren't planning, and then that was it. That was it. And somebody leaves, they leave your house, bye, very casual. It's the last time you see them. It's kind of interesting, and I got into this thing from doing these meditations was sometimes when I part from people, and people really dear to me, that when we're saying goodbye, and it used to be when I'd leave my grandmother, because she was old, I'd think, I hope I see her again. I don't know if will this be the last time, but you don't know that with anybody. So a lot of times a dear friend, I'd really be there to say goodbye to them, to really acknowledge that we're parting now, and this may be the last time. So it's something that keeps it kind of succulent in your mind about my own death. This could be me that's checking out this time. Don't know. People didn't plan on that when they woke up in the morning. No. Okay, so that's the second point. And then the third one is somewhat related. The body is very delicate. It's very fragile and delicate. So when you're in a car accident, the materials of the car, along with the velocity, is stronger. All of it contributes to smashing this. This isn't strong enough to sustain based on the speed, the materials coming together like that. Body's not strong enough. Same in an earthquake, or when the building falls down, crushes you. Building's stronger than that, than the body. Body's very fragile, so it picks up diseases, bacteria, viruses, like that. There's people that went into the hospital for like a minor surgical procedure. This happened to my cousin. He didn't survive. Heart gave out. It was a minor surgical procedure, and he didn't make it. Like that. That happens to people all the time. So you want to take time slowly reflecting, thinking about this. You can think about these points tonight. Slowly review. Think about, whatever. And if you didn't write down whatever popped out at you, you might say, oh, I remember I'm another moment closer to death. Or I remember there's so many things contributing to my death more than supporting me. So many things contributing to my death. So slowly you can, whatever comes out. And so those are the 3 points. The time of death is uncertain. The time of death is uncertain. Okay? So again, we live in an unfixed lifespan, planet with an unfixed lifespan, many things contributing to my death rather than supporting my life. And the third one is the body is very fragile. And this leads us to a resolution, that not only will I practice, I have to do it now. So it brings up the urgency. I am going to get to something now. I'm going to start now. I'm not going to wait till tomorrow. I'm going to start something now. Okay? So you want to get that real urgency in yourself for your practice. Because this is not about meditating on death to be fearful. It does generate some fear, but it actually lessens the fear overall. It's about waking up your practice. I am going to do something now. I've got to get going. Third root is the easiest one to recognize. Third root is the only thing that benefits you at the death time is your Dharma practice, your spiritual practice. Okay? This has 3 reasonings under it. The first reasoning is your possessions are of no help to you. And I would use position and possessions are of no help to you. Okay? Now people will say, yeah, but if I had a lot of money, and that it is true, I could choose to set myself up of how I want to die. I want to die at home, and I want 24/7 care, and I can afford it, and I can be in the most comfortable bed, and have everything around me that I want. And I know people that have died like that and have been miserable. So the money doesn't buy you peace of mind unless you've been practicing and have created that in your own heart and mind. Okay? So your possessions could lend that support externally to keep the body in a comfortable thing. And I do have some dear friends right now that are struggling late 70s with poor health. And a lot of people, as I know, they're running out of money to support themselves living in their home. And they want to stay in their home. So, and they really are not going to be able to afford the kind of care that they need there, which is a shame. So it's a shame that, unfortunately, our American system, the system in the US, doesn't have a great safety net for people. Because I teach in Europe a lot, it's much better there. And people are a lot happier. So there is a better way, frankly. Like that, something to think about. And we could create that right here in the United States. So, like that. So that's a shame. I think that's really a shame, like that. So you want to think about possessions aren't going to do it for you. And here's another thing that happens for people when they're actively dying with possessions, or when they are dying, or they get the cancer diagnosis and there's nothing they can do, is some people, the possessions, they start really attaching themselves to, grasping and full of attachment. And that's really hard. That's really hard. You know, and I've been at people's bedsides where they're, you know, the next of kin are kind of saying to the niece, oh yeah, she wanted to give you her pearls, you know, and the aunt is still alive. And then the aunt's suddenly like, no, you know, I'm not going, I don't want to do that yet. And they're kind of hanging on. And you have people fighting over belongings when you're still alive. And you may be hearing that in the room. People fighting over the house, or fighting over the jewelry, or fighting over the, you know, who knows, the crystal vase or something. So that can create a lot of turmoil in somebody's mind, possessions, like that. Number 2, reasoning under this, friends and loved ones, how do they help when you're dying? Is that helpful? What do you think? I've got some people going, no. What do people think? Why no? Because we're attached to them, right? Some people have a lot of attachment to these people, okay? And the other thing that happens is they have attachment to you, okay? So one of the things you want to do if you're a caregiver, we'll talk more about this in the next couple of days, if you're a caregiver of someone, is we don't want to be leaning over the person who's actively dying and crying over them and begging them not to die because we need them. I've heard people, I can't go on without you. What's that like when your body's riddled with cancer and you're dying? Like, there's nothing you can do. So it just makes turmoil in the person's mind. It's just torturous. So if you do have a group of friends and they know your practices, and we've done this a lot, and Lama Zopa Rinpoche's advised us, but some of us just jump into action now. We know what to do. We've been trained. And so we're there around people doing their practices and creating like a prayer group. People do this in all kinds of different faiths. And some people do it actively with the person around them so they can hear. I've been with people that are recovering from surgery. They're actually good. They're not dying, recovering from surgery. And they said, listen, these are my practices. When I'm recovering, come to the hospital. I want you to, every day I want you to do my session with me. Like, because we have daily commitments, some of us. We have to do these practices every day. So people have given me their stuff and said, will you come to the hospital? And then that way, even if I'm not conscious, I haven't woken up yet, but if you do it next to me, maybe I hear it and I'll keep the commitment. So I'm like, sure. So we do that for each other. Dharma friends can do that and create prayer circles around people. Rinpoche's advised us sometimes do this practice, go there, get a group around the person, and we're doing kind of vigils all the time with them to keep their mind in a loftier place, reminding them what's important to think about. Because the death time is a unique period. If you're a meditator and if you've trained your mind, you can use more subtle meditations to actually more subtle, clear light mind and die in that space. And that's very peaceful. That's what we'd like to do. So we want to encourage the person dying to remind them of their practice and what's going to help them connect to that space. Like that. And if somebody isn't really advanced or anything, is just to remind them about being peaceful. You could remind them about their teacher. You could remind them about certain topics of the philosophy that they like, that they've done the best they can do, and to now just allow the process, the natural process to occur like that. And to also check with them Are there any last things they want to do, anybody they want to speak to, anything they want to complete that they feel they haven't completed, that they want to tell you about? So many beneficial ways we can help. So that's one way, having people around you that you trust, friends and family that you know will keep the place peaceful, will keep agitated sounds and conversations away, and can do practice for you. Then it can be beneficial. But a lot of times people don't know. It's confusing. We're attached to them. They're crying over us. They're distraught. And then people say all the wrong things, don't they? Right? People get uncomfortable. They get uncomfortable. So they say some really things they just don't mean, they don't understand, you know. I've heard all kinds of things in some of the hospice work I did. It's just because people are uncomfortable. Sometimes silence is the best thing. You're just there. You can just be with somebody. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to say anything. So then we come to the third reasoning under this. Your body, how much is your body helping you at the death time? It's often the reason that you're going. It's not supporting. The physical body can't support anymore. Really old people, 99 years old. My grandmother, I'd say, one of the most natural deaths I saw. If you have most natural death, 99 years, it was like the engine simply ran out. The engine, just different functions of her body were just shutting down. She didn't seem to be in any particular stress. And whatever we were working with the doctors and the medical team, and each thing, like at one point, because she was very clear with us, she wanted whatever means possible to keep her alive, right? So then there was a discussion of a feeding tube, right? And then the doctor consulted and explained to us what it is and what happened, and because she was in a coma, but because these were her wishes, we wanted to honor her wishes, and it made it easy because we knew her wishes. So we're going to talk about that the next couple days. Make sure your wishes are clear and that the right people have those wishes that will honor your wishes. So we said to the doctor, well, this is what she wanted, and he said, okay. And then by the time they were preparing to take her, because it's a surgical procedure, at that point he said he didn't think she'd survive. So it was like her body was making the decision. So we were like, okay, so we're going to let that go. That's not going to be possible anymore. And we just moved along with her, and she had oxygen, she was comfortable. Like that. So the body's not going to really be of any help at that time. So this leads you to the resolution from this point. Not only am I going to practice, I'm going to do it now, okay? And I'm going to do it well. So I'm going to develop a rich, consistent practice, because that's what's going to be there for me at the death time. Any questions? Any questions online? It's pretty straightforward.
If you are here in the Gampa, you can raise your hand and we'll bring you a microphone so that folks online can hear you. If you're online, you can type it in the chat. If you're on Zoom, you can raise your hand. Oh, Carmen, go ahead. You can unmute and ask your question. Make sure you unmute, Carmen.
Carmen, can you unmute? Yeah.
Yes, hi. Would you please repeat the first root, second root, and third root? I think I'm missing something. I have first root is death is certain. Every moment we are closer to death, and then
Yeah. So let me just repeat the 9 points, okay?
yes, repeat the 9 points. Yes, thank you.
Absolutely, no problem. The first root is death is certain. Under that root, that main heading, are 3 reasonings. Everybody dies is number 1. Number 2 is we're another moment closer to death. Number 3, there's not a lot of time to practice Dharma formally. And that leads us to a resolution: I am going to practice. Second root or main heading is the time of death is uncertain. The 3 reasonings under this: number 1 is we live on a planet with an unfixed lifespan. Number two, there are many more things supporting our death than supporting our life. And number three reasoning is the body's very fragile. And this leads us to a resolution that not only will I will practice now. The third main heading or root is the only thing that benefits us at the death time is our Dharma practice. And the three reasonings under this is our possessions are of no help, our friends and family are of no help, and our body is of no help. And that leads us to a resolution that I'm not only going to practice and not only going to do it now, I'm going to do it well. You got everything? Okay, great.
Yes, thank you so much.
Sure, absolutely. Linda.
There's a question from a student who's on YouTube, actually, and typed it in the chat. It's good to leave the diseased body than to suffer. Is that correct?
I wouldn't cause leaving the diseased body prematurely. So there's things you can do to relieve suffering, and but we don't tend to commit suicide in the Buddhist tradition. That is seen as a negative act because you're harming yourself. So we feel it'd be better to make yourself comfortable and let yourself naturally pass away, even with cancer and things like that. We don't tend to hasten the process. But there are things you can certainly do to relieve the suffering with medication, sleeping pills, things like that is okay. And you can try to balance it so you can have some lucidity in that process, is what the Buddhist tradition would talk about, would follow. Is that helpful for the person on YouTube? And I see we have Martin has turned in, is a fuzzy animal. Very cute. There he is. But for the person on YouTube, feel free to ask, but hopefully that's helpful. Yeah.
I would just like to say, yes, I am a fuzzy animal.
I had no doubt. And so what I do find overall, what is helpful is, in thinking about some of these things that a lot of our society is uncomfortable talking about, but I must say, and some of you are quite aware, from, I believe, the mid-'60s, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross is the person that kind of broke it open in the United States and in the world, talking about death. It was really a taboo subject much before the 1960. And then she kind of was like, wrote her book on death and dying, and suddenly the hospice movement got going, and over the years, more and more and more and more, it becomes a very kind of standard thing of discussing. Hospitals are trained and medical clientele are trained in how to talk with people that are terminally ill and oncologists, and there's a whole kind of market on it, in a sense. So it's become very, not only trendy, but kind of okay to talk about death. Children are brought in now, children are brought to funerals sometimes, and where for me, at 13 years old, visiting my great aunt who was dying of cancer, my mother took us on this pilgrimage an hour away from us to say goodbye to her. Like, my mother even said that to us, me and my sister and brother, and took us in the car because we were going to say goodbye. So when we arrived at her house, her daughter opened the door, an adult daughter, and said, and leaned into us and whispered, "We're not telling her." So my aunt that was dying of liver cancer, it was like this charade in the house, like that they were not discussing that she had cancer and was dying. She was actively dying. She was quite sick at the time. And we went into her bedroom, and she was there in the bed, and we talked, and then when we said goodbye, it was like this, okay, well, we'll see you, and, it was like nobody talked about death. And at 13, I just found the whole thing so bizarre. And I kept saying to my mother, why are we telling? Why are they, like, she knows she's dying. Like, why are we not? But that's how it was. That's how it was. You know, can't talk about those kind of things. So then, and since Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, all the books on death and dying, the FPMT has more information on death and dying, things from Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and I have a death list I can email. I think I've sent it out before in this class, of books just to read that are books that I recommend, from Tibetan tradition to things from, you know, Joan Didion's. It's a fantastic meditation on the Year of Magical Thinking. Has anybody read that book? Anyway, if you have a relationship, if you're married in a relationship, read that book. You must read it, The Year of Magical Thinking. So it goes into contemporary books on, it's her 25, or I don't know how many years she was together with her husband. They were both writers. They lived in New York and adopted a daughter. And it's about her whole, when her husband died suddenly of a heart attack and left her, and she wrote about the year after of what it was like thinking about that. So if you're in a relationship or you've lost somebody in a relationship, a long term, definitely read that book. My sister, who lost her husband after 25 years, she found it very, very helpful to read. So there's a lot of books, really. So I have a list like that I can send out to Donna again to send out, and some really worthwhile books. So there's a tremendous amount of literature. Stephen Levine, some of his books have been wonderful. Even he died. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross died. Right? I mean, this is how it is. But Stephen Levine's books, one of them, one famous one called Who Dies, is really enormously helpful for people that are dying. To think about another thing than just the here and now of how attached we are. And the other thing in the Buddhist tradition, because we believe in reincarnation, we're going to talk more about that. Because we believe in reincarnation, or it's part of the Buddhist belief system, okay? So what I've often thought about is we've been through the death process many, countless times before, and we've survived it, right? Every time we've survived it, and we've gotten into another lifestyle, if you believe in reincarnation. So you want to think like that. What happens, the unfortunate thing is we don't remember. We don't remember like that. But we've been through all those things. We've been through all these other, you know, suffering realms and things like that. Okay. So I want to also talk about, and when we think about in the meditation we did, gross and subtle impermanence. Okay, gross and subtle impermanence. So these are ways you can start to think about, and we're in a nice season with spring where you see change happening a little bit. You can watch buds, and every day you see it pops out more. And suddenly there's, like for us in Pennsylvania now, we're not quite into spring. It's just in another week, and then what I first notice is I live in front of a small woods, so I'll start to notice in the woods, and right now it's just it's just plain branches. And so as a result, I can see straight through to the buildings on the other side of the woods. Straight through. And then what happens is the full moon rises in that direction, and it comes up really big there behind the house. Like I'll see it. But this is it. March is the last one. And then in April, the little light green leaves start to pop out. That's going to happen next week. And they'll start to come. And then the leaves fill in, and then suddenly it's this dense forest, and I can't see anything through for several months until October comes. And then the leaves fall off. And then we're back to different things. So you see, first of all, that's a gross impermanence where you're watching the season dramatically change like that. Something I miss so much living in California, where the seasons. I really like the East Coast seasons, like that. And then there's subtle impermanence. So like when I mentioned, cells replicating in your body, coming into fruition, changing, passing away. That constant mechanisms going on in your body you're not aware of right now. Like I said, even the blood flowing through. Your heart is beating, you're probably not even aware your heart's beating. Lungs are processing. Kidneys are functioning. Liver's doing its thing. Stomach's having, and we're just sitting here. But all these little more subtle things happening. And you go outside into nature, subtle things happening. The tree is growing bigger every year, but you don't notice that. It's very subtle how it changes, like that. So they also talk about initially in getting into death practices, there's advantages of thinking about death, and there's disadvantages when you don't think about it. Advantages for thinking and disadvantages. And some of the disadvantages come about in you won't think about practicing. If you do think about practicing, your practice isn't really going to be very powerful. You know, why? Oh, I'll do it tomorrow. How many times have we put off the practice? How many times have we put off participating in that class? How many times have we put off reading that book, getting on our cushion, learning about how to do that meditation? Right. Over and over, we push it away because I have tomorrow, I have tomorrow, I have tomorrow. And then a friend of mine was given a lot of practices by Lama Zopa Rinpoche. And if Rinpoche gave somebody a lot of practices, there was a good reason for it. So the thing is, if you engaged in those practices wholeheartedly, trying to at least get started, didn't mean you were going to finish everything right away, but to at least get started, then it really changed the whole nature of your practice. You know, if you decided to consult with Rinpoche, you have a highly realized being, and you decided to ask him for a life practice, and then he gave you these practices. It could be extensive, but just getting started is a huge blessing for your mind. You ask a highly realized being, you decide to follow the advice, huge blessing for your mind, okay? So she never got started. She got kind of overwhelmed and never got started, and there were excuses and excuses and excuses. And we know about excuses, right? We're really good at them, right? So she never got started, and then she got ovarian cancer. She got it badly as well by the time it was found, like ovarian cancer's like that. You know, it's usually too late by the time they find it. So I remember she said, and what we did is we would rotate, a bunch of us were doing practices with her. And one day she was too tired. When you get cancer, one of the byproducts, some of you may know, is fatigue is a big byproduct. You're tired a lot. So you can't, and then people are doing treatment, and they can't really focus on doing practices when they feel sick all the time. And so she'd be lying on a couch, and I was sitting on the floor, and I was doing the practice for her. And she would just kind of doze off. She wouldn't say much, and she would just be lying, but I'd say it out loud, do these mantras for her. And all of a sudden, she just turned to me really abruptly at one point in the middle of it. I thought she was sleeping, and she turned and she said, I should have started. And at first, I didn't know what she was referring to. And I said, you know, I was thinking her chemo treatment or like, you know, and I said, started? And she said, I should have started the practice the Rinpoche gave me. I should have just gotten started. But then it was too late when you're really sick. Okay? So those are disadvantages, is you won't get started, you won't do it. Your practice lacks luster, it lacks strength, consistency, right? And then when you die, you have a lot of regrets. Okay, so we really die without regrets. So the advantages are you get to your practice, the practice has a lot of succulence, richness, you know. And they also say it's very advantageous to think about death, and they say in the beginning, in the middle, and the end. What does that mean? The beginning of your life and the beginning of your practice. Middle of your life, middle of your practice. End of your life, end of your practice. Yep. Because the beginning of your life, okay, and usually when we're younger, we're not thinking about death. Not thinking about death. If you have some succulence, you might orient yourself in a little more beneficial way when you're younger and get into some good habits. Middle of your life, okay, people are having families, buying houses, developing a career, accumulating things, you know, all those kind of things, right? So it's a great time to have some practice oriented as well, you know. And you move into the middle of your practice, you're developing a rich, consistent practice that can plateau a little bit. It can get boring a little bit. It can be, you know, so you want to just remember, when I remember death, oh yeah, my practice. I'm going to keep that going. Really get it thoroughly developed. The end of your life, you've got that habit going. That habit is there. That's going to sustain me. I know what I'm doing. I did the best I could do. Right? You know, I certainly know we waste some times. I mean, it's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. It's funny, we all have that time of, not all of us maybe, but, you know, your phone time. Don't you have phone time every day? You need to deal with your phone. Isn't it funny, these things we have? I have some books on here, that's why I thought I might use my phone. But this thing, right? And so I noticed at Christmas time, I was with my sister and her husband. And I visited her and I stayed for, I was there, I don't know, a week or something. And there was some time in the afternoon and we'd all end up in the living room, the three of us, right? And we weren't like, they wanted to watch a movie, but we weren't eating anything or watching anything. And the three of us would just be in the room on our phones. And you're doing phone stuff, meaning I might be doing email, just checking into my phone email. Then I might be looking at the news a little bit. Then I'm looking at this other thing that I had to check up. Then I got some text messages. Then I had some WhatsApp things. And, and you're dealing with that world in your phone. I like to really try to minimize that as much as I can, right? And can you give yourself some tech holidays, please? That's a beneficial way to practice for death. Please give yourself tech holidays. And what I mean is, once a week, this is off. My computer is shut. I'm not opening it. I'm not looking at anything technological. That's it. I'm over and out. Go out, and this is the season. Go out, walk in nature, have a meal with somebody where you're talking with each other without your phones. There's buttons on your phones now. I'm sure you're aware of this. I have a focus button. I swipe and I push the focus button. It's my favorite button right now. I push the focus button and the phone goes away. Everything's shut off. It tells people I'm focusing now. I'm not available to you. Okay, and all the sounds go away and all the alerts go away and nothing comes in and I'm done. Focus. Okay? I love that button. Right? So again, there's different ways you can make habits to use the technology for beneficial purposes. And other than that, be skillful, because people come to me now. This is the latest thing. Please, can you help me? I'm addicted to my phone. Can you help me deal with my phone? Right? And they end up, spaced out looking at this and shopping for that, and it's just like that all the time. Okay? So technology has some benefits. We're on Zoom now. That's a great benefit. People can stay home in their pajamas drinking wine while they're listening to me. Not. Okay. But there are some great benefits that now you can be across the world and you can tune into any teacher you want. Fantastic. Okay, so you want to think about those advantages. It's really beneficial. Now, there will be people in your life that, and my mom used to do this when I would say something about, well, I don't know what will happen, Mom, I might die first. Oh, God forbid, don't say that, she'd say. She would say it was morbid. Why do you think that way? But for me, it would keep, so I just wouldn't say that around her if it upset her. But for me, there are advantages to thinking, this could be my last day. This is my last day. Or I'm about to engage with this difficult person at work. So what if it were my last day, meaning this could be the last time I see them? How do you want to be around that person? And the days, those of you that left jobs and you changed and you got another job, okay? And maybe you didn't really like the job you were at, which is why you changed jobs, right? Has anybody been in this experience? Right? And remember the last day of the job, and maybe they have a little going away party, or it's the last time you're going to see that jerk at work, like that person, or whatever it was, and suddenly it doesn't look that bad. It's kind of like, oh, I wonder if I made a mistake. Maybe I should stay. It's because it's your last day. That's why it looks so good. Right? Because you're leaving. Okay, so don't be seduced by that. Understand, but that's a way when I'm thinking about death and realizing things get more succulent. I could pick this up every time I have a drink order. This could be my last sip. Well, it's going to be a very different sip if I have that mindset. Then I'm just slugging it down with any, no mindfulness. But if it's really my last sip, I'm going to be there with that whole experience, because it's the last time I'll experience. So every time you're with somebody, can you really be with them? Or, and so now they have this device. Sorry, I'm going to poke some of you. An Apple Watch or a watch. You put it on your wrist, and now you have to check your watch. Your watch is going off, and it's, and I'm sitting with people having lunch, and then they go, hi. So again, we lose the presence with each other. So can we just be present with what's going on with ourselves? When I saw that device invented, I was like, and I had somebody that said, oh, you want one of those? I'll buy it for you. I'm like, get that thing away from me. This is hard enough, having this, right? I do not want anything attached to my body. Are you kidding? So think about it. Think about what those things, you become a slave to it, constantly keeping you from the present moment and keeping you from practicing with your mind, working with your mind. Kind of lost in space here, lost in the ozone there, okay? Oh, it's almost 9 o'clock. I'm so sorry. Really? That went fast. Goodness. Okay. Just there it is. There goes my last day. Okay. Any other questions about what we're talking about tonight or the meditation or now again, you have an exercise. Please. You're another moment closer to, but please reflect on those 9 points as much as you can remember, whatever you jotted down. Walking to the car, try to have the mindfulness. Driving in the car, it's the last time I'm going to drive. How do you want to drive? Pretty skillfully, pretty mindfully. Enjoy the drive. Enjoy the drive. It can be really nice to be with driving. Not, we drive and it's amazing the mind can do 2 things at one time because it keeps us on the road, right? Do you ever notice you're driving and then you really haven't been paying attention? It's amazing how we stay in the lane. Right? What if you really were, I'm going to be with my driving right now as I go home? It's a very different experience. Okay? Each thing you're doing, being present like that. And when you go to sleep tonight, okay, these are some exercises, we've done this before. When you lay down and you finish all your practice and all your dedications and your Vajrasattva and whatever you're doing in the evening, and you lay down, finally you're done, you lay down and have a motivation for sleeping. Have a sleeping motivation. I have to sleep for my health and well-being. I hope I sleep well. Maybe I'll remember some dreams, and I hope I wake up. But I want to sleep well to rest my body and mind, to refresh my body and mind for my health. And for my health because I want to use my life wisely and meaningfully on a path to full awakening. Because as a fully awakened being, I'm unlimited in how I can benefit all living beings. And it's really for that purpose that I'm going to practice the yoga of sleeping right now. And then you go to sleep. So with a good motivation, your sleep is more virtuous. Okay? Then you wake up in the morning, and then you have your little 2-minute joyful, precious human rebirth moment while you're lying in bed. And the next moment think, this is my last day. Have some reflection on the death points I just mentioned. Some reflection, set a good motivation, and then you get up and get out of bed with that Mahayana motivation. I want to make meaning today, to wake myself up, to progress along a path, to becoming a Buddha, to benefit all living beings. Okay? Everybody okay in our Zoom universe? Great. Great to see all of you. We start tomorrow at what time? 10 o'clock. Okay, thank you so much. We're going to dedicate the merit. And what we're going to do is go back to the Gold Prayer Book. Page 235. We're going to do some dedication prayers. We're going to read these 3 paragraphs. And I'd like to take whatever merit we have created together, which is positive energy, and just by thinking about death and conducting ourselves in a death course, a death program, death and rebirth, is I'd like to invest or dedicate whatever positive energy to our being able to really develop a rich, consistent practice in this life and to make great meaning in this life that will help move us along that path to full awakening so we can benefit all living beings. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. Just as the brave Manjushri and Samantabhadra too realize things as they are, I too dedicate all these merits in the best way that I may follow their perfect example. Page 244, the short, long life prayer for His Holiness the Dalai Lama. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chinre Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. And then I want to do Rinpoche's request to return swiftly for Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Do you have that on a?
Yes, that's on the back cover of the inside back cover of
Great.
the prayer book.
Perfect. I was going to pull my file up. Great. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious one, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang father and sons along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of the infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother living beings you suddenly departed to peace, what a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. Thank you so much, and hope to see you tomorrow, and have a good evening, and I hope it's a really good evening, and I hope you don't die.
Thank you so much.